Or can you see me? Can you hear me? Are we good to go? Are we Gucci? Let me know. Looks like we're Gucci. Looks like we're Gucci, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like we are Gucci. I'll confirm. And then we're going to go on ahead with it. Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Welcome back. All right, with that being said, but tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. We're streaming on YouTube, Kick, Twitch. Yep, we are everywhere. All right. With that being said, former FBI director, okay, former FBI director definitely doing way too much. Okay. Doing way too much. All right, here we go.
All right.
Okay, this story, it's sparking a wave of anger. James Comey, our former FBI director, posted on Instagram something that many are interpreting as a call for violence on the president. Look at this. The caption reads, "Cool shell formation on my beach walk." And it says 8647.
So this is what the former director is saying in response to this. It literally makes no sense, but here it is. I posted earlier a picture of some shells I saw today on a beach walk, which I assume were a political message. I didn't realize some folks associated those numbers with violence. It's never occurred to me, but I oppose violence of any kind, so I took the post down. So what political message did you think it represented?
Just in case you don't know, most people do. In the dictionary, it defines 86 as slang for to throw out, to get rid of, and to refuse service to. A lot of restaurants use this. When I was a waitress, they would put 86 green beans on the chalkboard, so you knew we were out of it.
But when it comes to law enforcement, a lot of times 86 means death.
That's right.
Kill him by 86 to him, he's dead. So we thought the head of the FBI has to know what 86 can be used. Why would you post that? Number one, who cares what James Comey thinks? All he spends his time on the beach. I'm wondering, did he do that rock formation?
Right, I was wondering that too.
Or do you think he just walked on and thought you'd share it? So this caused Don Jr. stumbled on it first and said, "Are you calling for the assassination of my dad?"
Yeah.
So here's the president responding to it.
He knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard because people like me, and they like what's happening with our country. Our country's become respected again, and all this. And he's calling for the assassination of the president.
Obviously, he apologized and said he doesn't.
Well, he
wasn't
apologized
calling
because
for violence. But
look, he's a very bad.
What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. But I will say this: I think it's a terrible thing, and when you add his history to that, if he had a clean history, he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop, if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was a leniency, but I'm going to let them make that decision.
Tulsi Gabbard was asked, "Do you believe that Comey should be in jail?" She said, "I do. Any other person with a position of influence that has people who take him very seriously with a guy of that stature, his experience, and with propaganda media has built him up to be." She's very concerned. So Secret Service is now dispatched to investigate.
And Don Jr. said, "Just James Comey casually calling for my dad to be murdered. This is who the Dem media worships, demented."
We've already had 2 attempted assassination attempts on the president.
Why would you encourage that?
Why would you put that out there? And plain stupid is not going to get you anywhere. I look forward to the investigation.
I'm Steve Doocy.
Here you go. Former FBI director. We already spoke about this. earlier, so we're not gonna go back and forth about James Comey. Okay, James Comey. But let me see if I am visible to you guys. Okay, I am. Let's put this back. Let's get this popping in here. Let's get these popping in here. All right, remember the inmate that escaped? Check it out.
The White House update on the 11 escaped jail inmates. Let's listen.
Be really clear. This is a public safety issue, and we all need to continue to work together to solve it, to get these folks back in custody. And we are doing that. All of our energy at OPSO is going towards getting these folks back into custody and finding out exactly what happened. It's a fluid situation. When we're aiming to respond to all media inquiries as quickly as we can possibly do that, but I still have to investigate it, and the integrity of the investigation has to stand. We do acknowledge there is no way people can get out of this facility without there being some type of lapse in security. There's no way.
Oh, really?
It's almost impossible, not completely, but almost impossible for anybody to get out of this facility without help from the outside. We intend to find out exactly what happened. We know that, I want to say that we know that folks are normally locked down in this facility at 10:30 p.m., but these folks that were able to get out did so because of defective locks on the cells. I have talked about those locks since I got into office. I wrote a letter to the consent decree judge, to the city council, and everybody else who would listen. And every time I go to budget, I say the exact same thing. When you all covered our millage, I said the exact same thing. There are deficiencies in these facilities that cause public safety concerns. That's why the millage was so important. We'll get into that a little bit more as we move forward. I need to confirm that Kendall Miles is in custody. He is being rebooked for simple escape as well. OPSO deputies found him hiding beneath the car at the Hotel Monteleone parking garage, and he was transported to OJC by the Louisiana State Police. We also need to acknowledge that Keith Lewis, who was previously reported as an escaped detainee, was in a different cell. So he had been moved, but it had not been updated. So he is not on the run. There were 10, not 11, and he is in our facility and did not try to escape. The remaining individuals are being actively pursued, and our deputies, in collaboration with local and state law enforcement, are working tirelessly to locate and return them to custody. Now we're going to try and go through a little bit of the timeline of events, because what's being reported out there isn't accurate. What we noticed is that the detainees began yanking on a cell to pull it off track. These are the cells that we keep telling that we need to replace at great cost in this facility. They were able to break, that was around 12:23 a.m. They were able to break open a door. There was a corrections monitoring technician in the pod module to be watching that. They were still able to exit the jail about 1:01 a.m. after breaching a wall behind a toilet in the jail, and based on video surveillance, they were seen exiting a door on the docks where we normally bring in supplies, scaling a wall, and running across the interstate shortly thereafter. We have indication that these detainees received assistance in their escape from individuals inside of our department. And the escape was discovered during a routine head count at 8:30 a.m. this morning. The deputy who was on duty promptly notified jail leadership, and around probably before 9:30, we notified the United States Marshals Task Force, which includes all of our partners in the area, and that was before 9:30, about the incident. I found out myself about 9 o'clock and was on my way to the jail and moving through it. About that time, the exact time I can't give you, but it was before 9:30. I asked our personnel, have we notified NOPD? Have we notified our partners? I was told yes, the task force was notified. And then we were also able to discern that the NOPD was also notified through the Fusion Center. Now, when this went down, our first concern is to find out who these folks are, confirm, and then we've got to lock down the whole jail and find out, make sure nobody else is missing. That's the first thing we have to do. We also have people being moved out to court. We've got to confirm who those are. So this is a fluid situation as we're trying to get a handle on 1,400 people in this facility. So it was a fluid situation. We're still gathering information. We are investigating our own to find out exactly what happened and where those lapses were. But there were supervisors on duty. There were lower level folks on duty, and they all had a job to do. And we're going to find out exactly what happened. I'm going to now turn this over to Chief Jay Mallett, our Chief of Corrections, to talk a little bit more about the cell itself.
Good evening. We do know that there are several security breaches. We're investigating, but the primary security breach and concern is the facility's infrastructure. We've identified that we have a large number of high security individuals in a minimum custody facility. This particular breach of security occurred on the first floor of one of our security pods where we had slider doors. These doors are able to be manipulated by forced off the track that they're on, which allows individuals to enter and exit at will. We do know that some toiletries in a handicap cell was used to be removed. Some of the bolts, some of the toilets, some of the infrastructure, some of the fixtures were removed. We know that this could not be removed from the inside, so we are investigating that to see exactly who entered these areas, what kind of work was done, if there was work being done, and if this is an inside job. We remain fully committed to locating the escapees. We're working with local and federal and state partners. We continue to ask the public for their vigilance, and if anyone has any information about the whereabouts of these individuals, please reach out. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, this incident has once again highlighted the critical need for repairs and upgrades to our facilities, particularly to ensure that doors and locks are fully functional. We currently have 24 pods, and our staff is stretched thin. We are only at about 60% staffing. We still need 150 deputies in this jail and another 50 for the new jail about to open. So we're actively, and I have been actively advocating since I got into office for more money to fix these broken parts of the jail that make it unsecure. And just this week, we went to a capital budget hearing to lobby for more improvements to address just these issues, which would help improve security and safety for both the detainees and our deputies.
All right, we'll take questions. What do you think?
Sheriff, how many people did you have on staff for this overnight shift that would have not reported this between 1 a.m. and 8:30 a.m.? And wouldn't they have to have known about it if there were plumbing items removed and they were able to get out and there was no notice until 8:30?
So I'm going to turn that over to Chief Mallett.
Good question. We actually had 4 supervisors and 36 staff here. That's a pretty, low ratio, but that's what we had. On that particular pod, we had a monitoring individual that was actually on site. Where we believe that the exit occurred was behind the cell wall. The staff that was available at that particular time of day, without going into too many security restrictions, wouldn't know that was going on behind the scene. That's more so a physical plant infrastructure deal that we do more routine daily type inspections of to make sure that these things are right.
Wouldn't they need power tools or something?
And that's something that we're investigating, because you're absolutely right. It was more than just a breach of security. It was some type of help. And we've been, researching, we've been investigating, and it would definitely be some type of tool used other than just the strength of a shared individual.
Shay, and you mentioned a technician earlier. Why didn't that person alert staffers earlier? I know you said somebody was also in the pod at the time and that they were still able to get out. If you could kind of run through.
We're still running through the timeline to narrow that down. That is part of the job, the duty and responsibility. That's in everyone's post order. So we're still trying to narrow that down. And as we get information, we'll be sharing.
And then also, have the family members of these escapees been notified? Do they know? If you could kind of talk a little bit about what they're saying.
Yeah, some of them have reached out to us to try and help. So we're very grateful for that. We obviously don't want to identify what's going on there, but we're definitely getting some help on trying to locate them.
Sheriff, you said that people are politicizing the escape here at the jail, but we talked with Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick early this morning. She also made it very clear that her department, we talked to the U.S. Marshals, we talked to Louisiana State Police, none of them say they were notified before 10:30 a.m. And then once again, y'all said that y'all discovered this at 8:30. Why wasn't the public and partners, local, state, federal, made aware of this sooner?
So I verified, so we have people on the U.S. Marshals Task Force. That's who we notified to make sure the whole task force is ready to roll. And they've been ready to roll since then. So I'm not sure how those up at the top found out, but I know that we notified the task force earlier because our members sit on it. And they came also up here to check on it. So we know that happened. What was your first part of your question? Chief Kirkpatrick has been nothing but a help to us, and we're very appreciative of both the state police and the New Orleans Police Department.
But once again, you all said that y'all made the discovery around 8:30 this morning. The escape happened early hours overnight. Yeah. And once again, public was not notified until 10:30 when y'all's press release came out.
So I found out about 9.
So why wasn't the public known?
We have to find out is what happened. So you got to go inside the facility to be able to see. They could have been anywhere. We have to make sure that's exactly what happened. We have to pull all the video and find out what happened. That takes a little bit of time. Then we had to first prioritize talking to victims to make sure they were safe and making sure law enforcement could respond to them if they needed something.
I know Superintendent Kirkpatrick.
You said that they yanked on the cell and they were able to get out and they ran across the interstate, but how were they able to get out of the jail property? And also, have you lost trust in your deputies because you believe this is an inside job?
Some of them. We have really hard-working deputies, but we're not going to tar and feather everybody with the same brush. We're going to find out exactly what happened, who's responsible, hold them accountable both administratively and criminally.
And how did they get off the jail property? That was my question.
Get off the jail property. They went out a loading bay door where we bring in supplies, and then they got over a wall. I'm not sure if they used the chief man can tell you more about how they actually got up there.
What we saw was they left, went through an exit door that's in between the actual cell block and the pipe chases. And this is a large facility, so the pipe chase, the exit door, for some reason or another, was designed to lead directly outside. The individuals left out the door, went down the stairs, went to the perimeter wall and scaled the wall. We did some looking today and realized that it's some razor wire that we need to put up, some issues, but they scaled the wall, jumped down, and then you have a clear path to the railroad track and or the interstate.
Sheriff Hudson, will you be releasing the surveillance video that shows the escape?
I think we're going to. Right now, we're part of the investigation going on, but I think eventually, we'll be able to release that. We just have to make sure it doesn't give out any security risks for us, for the rest of the folks here still in custody.
Sheriff, do you believe that you need to revise your policies?
Go ahead. Thank you. CBS News, I'm Katie Weiss. Pleasure. I wanted to ask you a little bit. I can't help but notice all the construction that's going on in your backyard. Does that have anything to do with this? We just saw a police escort bringing in a bunch of concrete. What's going on?
I don't believe it does. That's the new mental health jail, and there's a deputy on duty right there for the gates being open to bring in trucks or whatever needs to come in.
And you said you've been asking for money for a long time. How much money do you need at this point?
The locks alone, I believe, are
5.2 million.
yeah,
Just for the locks.
just the locks. I mean, 5.2 million.
9 people are still on the loose, just to clarify. So it's 9 people, 10 estates.
9 people are still.
Sheriff, do you feel like you need to revise your policies on notification to the public as well as other law enforcement?
To answer that question, Sheriff, thank you for your
Sheriff didn't really answer that question if we could.
I'll tell you this, we're going to debrief on everything that went right and went wrong, and we will move accordingly to make sure that for every incident that occurs that we do the best that we can.
What about
we'll look at it.
What about getting the photos out, though? I mean, to get the public aware of who is out there, there was another delay before that was released to the media so we could put it out to everybody.
We have to confirm who it is and pull their information. That's what the delay is.
And there was also a delay with getting the photos to other law enforcement. NOPD also said that as well.
I've answered the question.
Yeah, we'll have another
I've answered the
briefing
question.
at about 5:30. So if you have any more questions, you can call me directly. Y'all have my email, so you can call or email me directly. And if you have any more off-topic questions, I can ask you.
Yeah. So I'm just curious.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click.
There you have it. There you have it. Escape from Alcatraz. It feels like the movie.
Alert.
It feels like the movie. Y'all have seen the movie. Have you guys seen the movie Escape from Alcatraz? I'm sure some folks in there have seen that movie. They said, we're going to have to get out of here. I just hope everybody's safe out there in New Orleans and the sheriffs and police do what they're supposed to do. God bless and protect everybody over there. Here we go.
Audio of Joe Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur just dropped, and it's worse than we thought.
Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well,
there we go. Sleepy Joe.
I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Remember, Biden lashed out at the press when this report came out, including Peter Doocy, who joins me now from all the way across the world. That press conference, that was I remember that well. You do too.
Yeah, and I don't want to say that this vindicates the question that I asked, but it kind of does, because all that I did was ask President Biden why, and I'm just hearing a little bit of a mix-minus problem in the control room, if you guys could fix that. But I asked President Biden about this Robert Hur recommendation not to prosecute him for mishandling classified information, because he thought, after sitting for that interview, that any jury would just come to the conclusion that Joe Biden would not be convicted. He was a well-intentioned elderly man with a poor memory. And even in big moments, big addresses throughout his presidency, big part of the reason that he had to drop out and cede to Kamala Harris is because it sounded like on camera he was talking in slow motion. Oh. If you slowed that down 10 times, that is what you get with this audio. We know that it was on a busy day. He sat with Robert Hur in the map room at the White House as the October 7th attacks were unfolding. But it really makes everybody, once you hear this audio, it makes everybody that was saying, well, Joe Biden is okay in private, look really, really bad. We all saw what we saw on camera in public, but this is a recorded, and they knew that they were being recorded, but it just sounds like a guy who really needed a coffee. But it's unclear that would have helped him remember where it is that he kept the important information. And they're asking him, it's not like they're asking him about some hotel he stayed at in 2017. They were asking him, hey, in your house, where did you keep the important documents? Jesse. You didn't know.
Peter Doocy with the, I don't mean to say I told you so, but I told you so. Get some sleep. We love you. See you.
There you have it. Now, the Dems are saying that, like Trump would say, Sleepy Joe definitely was sleepy. All right. interview with the OG, the 45th, 47th, Donald Trump. Some people are saying, well, Trump is not all that coherent with his words. Let's find out.
Thank you very much.
First of all, congrats on becoming a grandfather for the 11th time.
Most importantly.
Tiffany, baby Alexander.
They're a really good couple, great couple, I think. And the baby is perfect. I'll let you know about it in 21 years. But the baby is good, so we're happy about that. I look forward to seeing the baby.
Seeing you with those grandkids. This is a big trip. This is seen, especially in this region, as a major, major success with the interaction between each one of these countries. How do you see it today as you wrap it up?
Well, I always considered it to be a very important region. I know all three leaders, as you could see, very well. In all three cases, I knew them long before I ran for politics, which is sort of something. It makes it a little bit more special. They're great people. The three of them, they're great people. And it's a great region, but it was never treated properly, and it was certainly not treated well by Biden, who didn't know he was alive, frankly, so, you know, you can understand that. But he was not, they didn't treat this group well. And I think they were being, and I guess you know, because you've reported on it, they were being coaxed very strongly by China, because that solves China's fuel problem forever. And it wasn't their preference, but they were on their way. They were going to China, and that was going to be their parent, and that's not happening anymore.
Do you think you've shifted the paradigm on that?
No, I don't think. I know. We are as close. We're closer now to them than ever before. You could see the relationship. You could get a body expert and pay them a lot of money, and they could tell you. No, there's just a relationship that I have with all three that's just very extraordinary. I was even saying, we're like so friendly. Not a normal situation where you're okay with a leader or whatever, but this is a very important region. This is the energy capital of the world. They have massive amounts of energy and other things. They've invested wisely, and they're looking to do other things. I guess in Saudi Arabia they said in another couple of years there'll be more than 50% other businesses represent more than 50% of the take. And it's pretty amazing what all of them have done.
You have a massive amount of business investment coming back to the U.S.
Right.
And they're still adding it up
Which,
in
by
each
the way,
country.
Most importantly, that's why I came here. I didn't come here to say, gee, you guys are rich and you have a lot of oil. They have a lot of money, and I want them to spend the money in the United States. And we set records. There's never been a trip like this by any president or anybody ever before. And I'd ask them, how about doubling it up? Okay. Oh, I should have asked for more, because they said, okay. They're good people, and they love our country. And look, they have great danger because of Iran. That's their primary danger. And that makes them vulnerable. But I don't see them as being vulnerable, because I think we have the greatest military in the world. And we're adding to it now at levels that nobody's ever seen. We're going to build the Iron Dome. We deserve an Iron Dome. See, we call it two names. So I was going to call it the Iron Dome because that's the name everyone has heard of for years. But to me, it was old-fashioned. So we changed it recently to the Golden Dome, the beautiful Golden Dome. And
matches
Ronald
the golden
Reagan,
age.
Ronald Reagan wanted that many years ago, and he was right, except you didn't have anywhere near the technology.
I want to talk about Israel. The first trip in the first administration, when you came over to the Middle East, you did do a stop in Israel on the way back. Not doing it this time. Obviously, the Israel-Hamas and what's happening in Gaza is driving a lot. How do you see that? Are you frustrated at all with Prime Minister Netanyahu?
No, look, he's got a tough situation. You have to remember there was an October 7th that everyone forgets. It was one of the most violent days in the history of the world, not the Middle East, the world, when you look at the tapes. And the tapes are there for everyone to see. So he has that problem. That problem should have never happened. Now, if I were president, that problem wouldn't have happened because Iran had no money. They were stone cold broke. and they weren't giving money to Hamas. In fact, I remember in your show, like a year before that, you were saying there's no money for Hezbollah, Hamas. There's like 28 different groups. The Houthis. But they have 28 groups that we know of, and none of them, they were all breaking up because there was no money. And then Biden came along, he took off all the sanctions on Iran. I mean, I put sanctions that were so strong. Anybody that did business with Iran could not do business with the United States. So everybody took a pass, including China. Biden came in, he just let everyone go by, and they became, they have over $300 billion today.
So how do you get to a solution there?
Oh, we'll get 100%.
You think so?
Well, we're going to have a solution one way or the other. It's either going to be violent or not violent. And I far prefer nonviolent. I know so many Iranians from New York, from Washington, from different places. These are great people. You have to view them as people. And I don't want it to be a violent thing, but they're not going to have a nuclear weapon.
But you said it was close the other day. You said it was close to a deal.
I think it's close. I think,
so does that mean that they're going to
make
enrich at any level, like a civilian level?
No, I think they want to make a deal. You say to yourself, they have massive oil, by the way. They have oil that lasts for 300 years. They have a lot of oil. People don't realize they're one of the biggest in the world. And it's very good oil, meaning it's pure, perfect stuff. They don't have to spend a fortune on gases and energy in order to melt the rock and everything. They have pure, unadulterated, good oil. And you say, why does somebody that has that kind of oil, other than being politically correct, but when you have unlimited amounts of oil and gas, why are you putting up, why do you need civil nuclear? I just don't see it.
But I mean, are you going to call for it all?
And I think nuclear is fine. I think nuclear is fine for civil if you have a country with no oil. But if you're sitting on one of the largest piles of oil in the world, why are you talking about putting up nuclear civil? I call it nuclear civil.
And so Bibi Netanyahu is not convinced that a deal would be good for the region. Is that fair to say?
I think I can say that Bibi, he's an angry man. And he should be because of October 7th. And he's been hurt badly by that. But in another way, he's been sort of helped because I think he's fought hard and bravely.
And you think the Israel-Hamas, the situation in Gaza is going to come to an end soon?
Gaza's a nasty place. It's been that way for years. I think it should become a free zone. Freedom. I call it a freedom zone. It should become a freedom zone. It doesn't work. Every 10 years, they go back. They have Hamas. They have everybody's being killed all over the place. I mean, you ever see? You talk about crime stats. It's a nasty place.
Are these people, these countries that you were just visiting, are they going to have to be a part of the solution?
Well, they would be. They would be. I spoke to all three of them. They would absolutely be. I mean, they're really rich and really, really, really even more than rich. They're good people, and they would help. And so money's not even the problem.
Well, you got to get countries to say yes. Take them.
Look, these are people that want to be in the Middle East. They really want to be in the Middle East. They love the Middle East. I see that. There's a spirit for the Middle East. They didn't have to go to Sweden, Germany, these different countries. They could have been home in the Middle East if somebody had the brains to build beautiful communities. 1.9 million is a lot of people, but it's not a lot of people, relatively.
You had a couple of foreign policy successes even right before this trip. You picked up the phone and called two nuclear powers, India and Pakistan, and you got them to step back from the brink. That was a success as you got on the plane heading over here.
A bigger success than I'll ever be given credit for. Those are major nuclear powers. Those are not like a little bit. And they were angry. And the next phase was probably, did you see where it was tit for tat. And it was getting deeper and more missiles. Everyone was stronger, to a point where the next one's going to be, the N-word. You know what the N-word is, right?
Nuclear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
I figured you'd want to clean that up. No, it's the N-word. That's a very nasty word, right? In a lot of ways. The N-word used in a nuclear sense, that's the worst thing that can happen. And I think they were very close. The hatred was great. And I said, we're going to talk about trade. We're going to do a lot of trade. Don't forget, Iran wants to make a deal with us badly for a lot of reasons. But when you look at India, they are calling. You know, Iran wants to trade with us, okay, if you can believe that, and I'm okay with it. I'm using trade to settle scores and to make peace. But I've told Iran, we make a deal, you're going to be very happy. But more than anything, I've told Iran very simply, because I heard somebody making my case last night on television. I didn't like it, because they were saying, there's plenty of time. There's not plenty of time. There's not plenty of time.
You feel urgency.
Well, they're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and eventually they'll have a nuclear weapon, and then the discussion becomes a much different one. But in the case of India, India wants, you know, they're one of the highest taxed or tariff nations in the world. They make it almost impossible to do business. Do you know that they're willing to cut 100% of their tariffs for the United States because of what I did? Is that deal coming soon? Yeah, that'll come soon. I'm in no rush. Look, everybody wants to make a deal with us.
So South Korea.
South Korea wants to make a deal with
India,
us, everybody. But I'm not going to make deals with everybody. I'm just going to set the limit. I'll make some deals, and then I'm just going to, because you can't meet with that many people. I've got 150 countries that want to make deals. You know, you have a lot of countries.
The market was really happy with the China situation and the sit down
they were.
With the Treasury Secretary.
If I didn't do that deal with China, I think China would have broken apart.
Not us, them.
We weren't going to break. We're not going to break. They would have broken apart. You know, our country has a lot of spirit. And you know why? Because of November 5th. Because our country has spirit again.
The other foreign policy shift was this embrace of Syria. You met with the Syrian president, who has a shady past of being tied to Al-Qaeda and the al-Nusra Front in Syria. But you see promise there.
Well, before I talk about that, just one word.
Yeah.
Also Pakistan. Great conversations with Pakistan. You know, we can't forget them. And because it does take two to tango. And with India, I felt very certain. And with Pakistan, I also talked about trade. Oh, they would love to trade. They would love to trade. You know, they're brilliant people. They make incredible products. And we don't do much trading with them, and yet I have a good relationship with. I have a good relationship with a lot of people that you wouldn't believe. But I stopped that war. That was going to be a nuclear war, I think, or close, very close. You were right there.
Yeah.
And now everyone's happy. In fact, I told my people, call them up. Let's start trading immediately, because I'm a man of my word. Now, when you get to Syria, so I did something with Syria because the future king, and you have a wonderful king right now. He's an older man. He's also a friend of mine, and he's 100% sharp. He's great, and he's got a great son, the Crown Prince, and he has actually many titles. He's Prime Minister, he's Crown Prince, and he's doing a great job running it. But he called me, and he spoke to me, and he said, could you do me a favor? Could you, and do the world a favor, could you take the sanctions off Syria? Because the only way they're going to have a chance, the sanctions are crippling, really biting. Well, that's what I did with Iran, and they came to a point where they were bust. Could you take the sanctions off? I hadn't thought about it much, and he said it in a way that was, you know, he's got a great heart. He said, they can't make it with those sanctions. I said, let's give him a chance. I met the leader. I met the new leader, and handsome guy, by the way, young, handsome. And I said, you know, you have quite a past. You've got a tough past. But when you think about it, are you going to put a choir boy in that position? I don't think so. You know, it's going to be a little bit tough. It's a tough part of the world. So
you're willing to give him a shot?
You know the word they say, it's a nasty neighborhood. It's a rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I thought he was really, I thought he was terrific. He was so thankful about the sanctions because he knew he's not going to be able to bust through.
So maybe it'll be a turn there. We'll see.
I think he has a real chance. He's a strong guy. He's done some pretty tough things.
A lot of the coverage here was about your speech in Saudi Arabia and some of those things that you said about trusting these countries to make their own decisions, and we're not trying to make it a mirror image of ourselves. You know, big foreign policy thoughts.
We have our own problems.
Yeah.
You know?
But a lot of the coverage back home was about this donation of the Qatar Boeing jet. And I've heard you talk about it.
You know, until you bring this up now, I haven't heard about it for 3 days.
I know, but I mean, I'm just telling you
we can talk about it again. You ready?
Briefly.
You ready?
No, I heard all the answers.
Well, no, but your audience has to hear the answers. Yeah.
They're giving it to the Defense Department.
To be very simple.
Yeah.
They're giving it to the United States Air Force / Defense Department of the United States. They're not giving it to me. I made a good deal. We need a plane for a couple of years before we get the other ones because Boeing is very late. Boeing is sadly.
Did you talk to the CEO while you were?
I did. I said, let's get, in the meantime, I got them 160 planes to build. I said, how about the two that you're supposed to build for our country? Now, they are different. They're extremely complex, and I'm not going to go into it, but they're not like a normal plane. It's not like building a 747 normal.
We could put people on the moon before
but let me tell you,
the Boeing Air Force One is
People
done.
knew I was angry at Boeing. A lot of people know. These people know. They're very smart down here. And they suggested if we can do anything at all to help. Because we have 40-year-old planes right now. Our Air Force One is actually two planes. It's two 747s.
I don't think people know that. 40 years. It's 4 decades old, the current Air Force One.
They're 40 years old. They're more than that. I think they're 42 now. I've been saying 40 for 2 years. They're 42. We shouldn't have a 42-year-old plane. And you know what? There's nothing unsafe about it. In many cases, they're just as safe or more safe. They're heavier. They throw out a lot more for the environmentalists out there to turn them. They throw out a little more than a modern engine would throw out. But they're good, but they're 42 years old. And when we landed, I saw the other day, when we landed, we parked right next to the 747 of Qatar. And we parked next, there was another 747, 2 or 3 of them, which the Arab world has. And when you look at a new 747 and you look at a plane that's 42 years old, not even the same plane, the other ones are bigger and sleeker and sharper, and it doesn't look right. We have a problem with Boeing. Now, again, it's a very complex plane. It's a much different plane than a normal plane would be. Okay. And they're doing a great job. They're coming back, and they're coming back strong. But I'm angry about them for the 2 planes. They should be able to knock them off in no time, and it's, they're not able to do that. And he said, great gentleman, Tamim, he said, I would like to help if you want. I said, how can you help? Well, we happen to have a plane. And I said, well, what do you want to do? He said, you have been, and he doesn't mean me, although I have been good. He means our country has defended them, has done great things for them. They might not be there.
Base.
Look, right next to Iran, and he is right next to. He's not like an hour away. Like I flew an hour to one, I flew an hour to here, but that one you don't have to fly. All you have to do is walk right across the border if you want to. I mean, it's literally touching, right? Right next to. And he said, your country has been very good to us. I would love to do something to help with this situation you have with Air Force One. I said, that's nice. What do you suggest? And he suggested this. And I said, you know what? That's very nice. That's very nice. I appreciate it. What would be the price? He said, there is no price. I said, that's nice. Now, this plane's not for me. This goes to the United States Air Force for whoever is president. And at some point, it'll be like Ronald Reagan. It'll be decommissioned. It's 11 years old.
So it stays until it's decommissioned.
Yeah, it'll be decommissioned because they won't want it. Plus, they'll have the other 2 planes by that time, and there'll be brand new planes, etc. But I just want to say, it was a radical left story that a lot of people, including you.
And I asked the Prime Minister about it specifically. And he said, he didn't understand the reaction back home. And, he made that clear.
I think he was insulted, actually. He made a gift to help somebody that has helped them. It was so nice as a gesture. And the people here, to show you how it's crazy, they'd like me to pay $1 billion. I'd rather pay $1 billion and get 10 fighter jets instead of giving $1 billion when it's not necessary.
Mr. President, if you'll stand by.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. Part 2. Here we go. OG status.
Welcome back to Special Report in Abu Dhabi, the UAE, with President Donald J. Trump. Putin doesn't go to Turkey. You thought about going if he was going.
Well, I had a problem. I mean, I consider the Middle East very important. And I had a problem because Thursday I was going to be UAE, okay, and which is where I am now. We're going to be leaving in a few hours and have another couple of stops. It's a pretty grueling schedule. A lot of people said, how the hell do you do it?
By the way, how the hell do you do it?
I don't know. I think it's genetics. It's good genetics. I had a father who was very strong, and I had a mother who was very strong. They lived to ripe old ages, and they were great people. And it's meeting after meeting. And not only that, it's speech after speech. It's not like big ones. Like last night, if you look, he got up and made a beautiful speech. Mohammed, he got up and made a beautiful speech. I wasn't told I even had a speech to make. So I had to make a speech off the cuff. Do you think Biden could do that? I don't think so. Actually, it was a pretty good speech till I looked at it. It was pretty good. I didn't know I was doing it. So, but you know, it's meeting after meeting with the highest level people. These are great people. They love us again. They were not feeling love at all. They were going to China. They're not going to China anymore.
You were going to go to Turkey. Putin doesn't show. Zelensky shows. What do you think?
No, I was never scheduled to go.
No, you weren't scheduled, but you were talking about maybe you would go if it all came together.
But I tell you what,
so what do you think?
I would not have wanted to disappoint UAE because that was my
big
stop.
deal.
And if I went to Turkey, I couldn't go here, and it would have been. It would have been very hard for me to say I'm not doing it.
On the substance, what do you think's going through Putin's mind? You said get to the table. You said stop bombing. He hasn't stopped bombing. He's not at the table. And what do you think is happening?
Well, he is at the table, and he wanted this meeting. And I always felt there can't be a meeting without me because I don't think a deal is going to get through. There's a lot of hatred on both sides. I have a very good relationship with Putin. I think we'll make a deal. We have to get together, and I think we'll probably schedule it because I'm tired of having other people go and meet and everything else. And with that being said, I think Steve Witkoff has done an incredible job. But it's a very tough job, and it's a job that, because of position, that I think I'm the only one that's going to be able to do that one. And I think we'll do it fast, too. I think Putin is tired of this whole thing. He's not looking good, and he wants to look good. Don't forget, this was supposed to end in 1 week. And if he didn't get stuck in the mud with his army tanks all over the place, they would have been in Kiev in about 5 hours. And who gave the javelins? Do you remember who gave the javelins? Was it Barack Hussein Obama? No, it was Donald Trump gave the javelins.
Do you think your perception of it has changed? Is Putin now the obstacle to peace in your mind?
Look, I had a real rough session with Zelensky because I didn't like what he said. And he was not making it easy. And I always said he doesn't have the cards. And he doesn't have the cards. And, I'm being honest. He doesn't have the cards. You're dealing with a massive army, and you're dealing with somebody that's brave, that had great equipment.
But I haven't seen you get personal. On Truth Social, you said, Vladimir, stop. He hasn't stopped. And you had once said that maybe you need to look at other things like sanctions or banking.
Okay, so
because maybe they need to be pressured in a different way.
And I'll be doing that if
do you think that it's
I don't want to
time?
see 5,000 people. Outside of the money, which is a big deal, but the money is the money. The money we can make up. I can make up the money on one trip like this. Okay, I mean, think of it. This trip, I made 12 times the money that we're talking about. I made that money in a few days. I've always been good with money.
It's not about the money, it's about pressuring Putin, right? I mean,
No, but I've always been good with money. I make money. I made in 4 days, I made 12 times what we spent in Ukraine. So the money is the money. What bothered me, I hated to see the way it was, excuse me, pissed away. I hated to see that checks were sent for $60 billion. Every time Zelensky, I think he's the greatest salesman in the world, far better than me. Zelensky, he comes to Washington, he walks out with $100 billion every time he came, $100 billion, $100 billion. Now his abilities were shrinking because the last time I only got $60 billion. But Congress is very upset about it. They're saying, where is all this money going?
But I'm focused on
we
Putin.
sent checks. We don't only send we sent just checks. We sent just cash. Where is it? The Europeans have been very badly hurt by this. They spent a lot of money also. They spent $100 billion. We spent $350. It shouldn't be that. It should have been the other way around. But
are you going to put the
they have
screws
not
to
been
Putin?
treated. Wait, they have not been treated right by anybody. This is a war that they're, spending a lot of money on. We've been treated worse than them because we had a very stupid person as a president. And if I can solve that problem, and it's a bad problem, because I will tell you, Putin, it was the apple of his eye. He never would have done it if I were president. Never, ever would have done it. 100%. I think most people, actually even Democrats say that it wouldn't have happened. But we inherited a mess, okay? I think it's going to get solved. But you know that Putin wanted the whole thing. He didn't want a piece. He didn't want a chunk. He wanted the whole thing. Somebody said, well, what do we get out of it in terms of, let's say, Ukraine?
Right.
You know what they get out of it? A large portion of the country.
It's just Senator Lindsey Graham has 73 co-sponsors on this bill to sanction Russian oil and anybody who buys Russian oil. He's making the pitch for the bill saying, why should China get the benefit of cheap oil from Russia as Putin continues the war? At some point, there has to be leverage on Putin. And I assume that you've talked about that.
Nobody uses leverage better than me. Look what I did to Iran. Look
so
what I
it's
did.
changing.
It's not changing. I always had that. I will use that if I have to. I'd rather not use that. By the way, that's a big deal. I just put it on Venezuela. It's secondary sanctions, it's called. And I just did it with Venezuela.
And you could do it with Iran, too.
I just did it with Iran. It's basically, if you buy oil from Iran, you can't do business with the United States. And you see the ships just leaving that port. In Venezuela, it was amazing.
But why not do it with Russia? You
had to see well, I will if I do. Honestly, I will. If we're not going to make a deal, we're going to see whether or not this is Turkey time. This is now we're talking Turkey, and we'll see what happens. That would be crushing for Russia because they're having a hard time now with the economy. Oil prices are low.
It would change the dynamic.
Okay, so he's incompetent. He doesn't want to see the war. Because everything he said was wrong. The way he talked about Putin, the way he said the threats, it's just wrong. But here's what was really wrong: he let oil go from $65 to $100 a barrel. Putin was making a fortune. Now I have oil down, so nobody's making a fortune anymore, and it's going to go down further. Because I'm baby drill, He closed up everything, and then he opened it. What people don't realize, they said, oh, no, he closed it up, and it drove oil through the roof. And then he said, go back to Trump, go back to Trump. In other words, go back to what I was doing. And he didn't, but they did to a large extent. He didn't go all the way. And I would have been double that by that time, but he didn't go all the way. And what happened, he forced the prices up, the oil prices up, and Putin made a fortune during that period of time.
Yeah. Did you see this thing with the former FBI director, James Comey?
I did. I just saw it on the news.
He puts up this post showing 8647 in the sand, saying cool shell formation on a beach walk. Your director of national intelligence was asked about it last night, and she said this.
Whatever James Comey intent, he and people like him need to be held to account according to the law, which is something that he claims to have given his life for and stands by the rule of law. Fantastic. The rule of law says people like him who issue direct threats against the President of the United States, essentially issuing a call to assassinate him, must be held accountable under the law.
Do you believe Comey should be in jail?
I do.
Do you?
So I saw that this morning. There's a big time gap. And he knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant. And he did it for a reason, and he was hit so hard. Because people like me, and they like what's happening with our country. Our country's become respected again, and all this. And he's calling for the assassination of the president.
Obviously, he apologized and said he wasn't calling for violence. But
look, he's a very bad.
What do you want to see happen? What do you want to see happen?
I don't want to take a position on it because that's going to be up to Pam and all of the great people. I have Cash, I have Pam, I have great people. And I'm going to let them, because if I tell you something, they'll say, oh, I'm not going to get involved. But I will say this, I think it's a terrible thing. And when you add his history to that, if he had a clean history, he doesn't. He's a dirty cop. He's a dirty cop. And if he had a clean history, I could understand if there was a leniency. But I'm going to let them make that decision. But he knew exactly what it said.
It's a dangerous time. I see security around here. It's very tight. You're in the Middle East. You've had 2 assassination attempts. One, obviously, where you got hit by that bullet in Butler. There's a lot of frustration that we still don't know about that shooter in Butler. And we don't know about his communications. We get stonewalled all the time asking questions about it. Is there frustration on your part? Will we get transparency? Will we know the bottom line story?
It's very interesting because we have great people. I think Pam is incredible. I think Cash is incredible. And they're doing a great job. They're being recognized as doing a great job. I was given an explanation early on, sort of a little bit pre them. And I thought it was strange. The one guy had 18 cell phones. Okay. I have a lot of cell phones, but I have like 2. I call that a lot. And I think I probably make more calls than him. It's like, that's all I do. And I had to, why does somebody have 18? Another one, the first one from Butler, he had 3 apps, very unusual apps, and 2 of them were foreign apps. And then he ends up with a white shoe lawyer, meaning a super lawyer from Pittsburgh, the big city. And they live outside of Butler in a little place. Where did they get this lawyer that would represent IBM and would represent ExxonMobil?
But you're the president. Can't you find out?
No, I know. I'm relying on my people to tell me what it is. We have deep-seated craziness in this country. And I'm relying on my people, and so far they're good, but so far and in this case it's Secret Service, they tell me it's fine. But it's a little hard to believe, to be honest with you, okay? It's a little bit hard to believe as I get that throbbing feeling.
Yeah.
I get a little throbbing feeling.
Well, if you find out, we'd love to know. We continue to ask.
I know. No, I
and a lot of
understand
people ask us.
It's a little bit strange. We have incredible people in there now, so can't blame that.
Well, you've been very generous with your time. I'll just wrap it up with this. This is, in the minds of Democrats, Republicans, a very successful trip, big picture. Because it's this way, do you want to do more foreign policy trips? Do you want to go talk to China's Xi Jinping? You're a force of personality as far as getting things done on a business front. Do you think that that's the model that you're going to have going forward?
Yeah. So, well, it's a very hard model. It's a very taxing model. When you do this. So when you say, is it fun?
Yeah.
Now, I did say I was standing next to all 3 of them over the last few days, and with tremendous fanfare and everyone going crazy and everything else. It's at a level that nobody's ever seen before. Honestly, nobody's ever. I'm getting calls back in the United States. We've never seen anything like this. It's so good for our country, so I'll do it again, and I'll do it. And yeah, I would certainly China where it's important. That's important in a different way. This was very important to keep in our fold. It's just they're in our fold. They are back loving the United States again. That was a full embrace, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. I mean, seriously, I asked, have you ever done this before? Last night, 2 nights ago, I said, have you ever done anything for No. Would you? No. Not even close. With the hundreds of camels and the horses and this, it was beautiful. I mean, all three. If you said which was the best, I couldn't tell you, and they were different. They were all at the top level. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. It was an honor. But that really, to me, it showed love. It showed, there's a love. It's almost like they were shut out for a long time, just shut out and treated horribly, and they shouldn't have been. And all of a sudden, they were allowed back in, and they give you an embrace that's 20 times what it perhaps should be. I mean, it was just a beautiful thing to see. So we're in great shape. The Middle East is great. Now we have one problem in the Middle East, Iran, and I'll get that problem solved. It's going to get solved one way or the other.
Hamas and Israel, that's eventually going to get solved.
That's a big
too.
problem. I think Iran is right now the big problem. That's also a problem. Hamas is big, and we want to take care of the people. Look, people are starving. You know, you see what's going on right now. People are starving. One of the things that one of the three great leaders that I saw 2 nights ago said to me, please help the people, the Palestinians. I said, other than the obvious, what do you mean by that? He said, they're starving. And he meant it with his heart. They're starving. So I've already started working on that. It's a deep problem, but we'll get it solved. And a very immediate and a very big problem is, you know, I'm so proud of what we were able to do with India and with Pakistan. Well, it's a potential problem like that we have here. I'll get it solved, and one way or the other, I'll get it solved. It's either going to be done nicely or it's going to be done violently. And I 99.9% want to do it nicely if we can.
Whoa. This man always advocates for peace. Every single time he's advocating for peace. This is what I voted for. All right, Joe Biden.
Fox News alert, a recording of Joe Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur has just been released. Axios got its hands on about 8 minutes. We'll play some of it for you in a second. Robert Hur had been appointed special counsel by the Biden Justice Department to investigate Joe Biden's mishandling of classified documents during and after his vice presidency. Classified documents were discovered in sloppily packed boxes in Joe Biden's garage next to his Corvette and inside his home office. At the same time Biden was raiding Mar-a-Lago and indicting Trump for mishandling classified documents, his handlers were scrambling to locate the classified documents that Biden had mishandled. Now, Biden, as VP, didn't have the constitutional authority to possess any classified documents. So after Robert Hur interviewed President Joe Biden, he released a report. The report stated that Joe Biden had mishandled classified documents, but because he was a, quote, sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory, he declined to recommend charges. Later, the transcript of the Biden-Hur interview was released, but not the audio. Tonight, we have some of this audio. First, we'll play you a portion where special counsel Robert Hur asks President Biden, where did you keep your papers? And Biden can't answer, and then rambles incoherently about his son. Can't remember when his son died and can't remember when Trump was elected. Watch.
So during this time, we were living in Chambers Road, and there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden or the cancer moonshot or your book. Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18 area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was, and so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I might run for office again. So if I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening though, one month Bo died, May 30th, 2018. Was it 2015 he died? 2015. I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think it was.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why do I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, January of 2017.
Okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in.
Right.
January.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Correct. And in 2017, Bo had passed, and
Robert Hur was absolutely right. It's very hard not to feel sympathetic for President Biden. He's clearly exhausted, his memory's shot, and he's lost and confused about his very painful past. Joe Biden and Robert Hur continued.
Bo, I used to go home on the train in the period that I was still in the Senate. Anyway, if you remember. There was not pressure. Bo knew how much I adored him. And maybe this sounds so, everybody knew how close we were. There was not anybody in the world who wondered whether or not, anyway. And so.
Sir, I'm wondering if this is a good time to take a break. Briefly.
No, let me just keep going to get it done.
Biden still hasn't answered the question 4 minutes later. Still hasn't answered it. Where did you keep your papers? Still has not answered it. If he can't answer a simple question like that in a high-stakes interview, how was he in the Situation Room? How bad was his memory? What else wasn't he able to remember when he was president?
Yeah, Lord.
Remember, this is the first time an outsider had spent any time with the president for a very long time. This was October 2023. This is the third year of his presidency. Remember, he had been kept from his cabinet secretaries, went for months without seeing or speaking to them. This was at a time when his inner circle was getting smaller and smaller. And sometimes there'd be like 4 to 5 days when the public hadn't even laid eyes on him. Hur was the first one within the Biden administration to tell the truth and say, something's not right. And when his report was released, it was like a bomb went off. Biden was forced to jump out of bed at 8 o'clock at night in a hastily arranged press conference where he lashed out at her and started pointing his fingers.
How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad, I let you speak.
For months when you were asked about your age, you would respond with the words, watch me. Many American people have been watching, and they have expressed concerns about your age.
That is your judgment. That is your judgment. That is not the judgment of the press.
Biden's performance then did nothing to shut down the talk that he was too old to be president and too old to run for re-election. But the dam never really broke. Democrats were never able to force a primary or force him to step down. And the next bomb to go off after the Hur report, the debate.
We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death.
I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News.
Oh, God. Woo. Oh, my goodness. Sleepy Joe, ladies and gentlemen. All right, for the liberals, we're going to go to CNN, okay? Because y'all be doing way too much.
Breaking news, President Trump's legislative agenda, what he calls his one big beautiful bill, just failed to make it out of a key committee. 5 Republicans jumped ship and joined Democrats to vote down the bill. Our smart reporters are here, including and especially our all-star Capitol Hill reporter, Lauren Fox. Lauren, I want to bring you in, but I first want to play a soundbite from Chip Roy, Republican of Texas, who has been kind of leading the charge on concerns about his fellow Republicans and this bill.
I have to now admonish my colleagues on this side of the aisle. This bill falls profoundly short. It does not do what we say it does with respect to deficits. The fact of the matter is, on the spending, what we're dealing with here on tax cuts and spending, a massive front-loaded deficit increase. And if we would reform Medicaid, we could actually get to the core of the problem. But we refuse to do it. And I'm not going to sit here and say that everything is hunky-dory when this is the budget committee. This is the budget committee. We are supposed to do something to actually result in balanced budgets. We are writing checks we cannot cash, and our children are going to pay the price. So I am a no on this bill unless serious reforms are made today, tomorrow, Sunday. We're having conversations as we speak, but something needs to change, or you're not going to get my support.
Lauren, he's pretty emphatic.
Yeah, and let's just put this into context. The Speaker wanted to move forward with this bill, get it to the House floor, pass it before the Memorial Day recess. That's next Thursday. Obviously, this is a huge setback for the Speaker. I'm really surprised that they ended up having this vote in committee because these holdouts had been voicing concerns over the course of the last 24 hours. There have been numerous meetings, including Steve Scalise, the majority leader, meeting with these members in the ante room off the committee as it was ongoing. When they came back into the room, each of them spoke. It was very clear they still had concerns, still had opposition. They want to see some of these spending cuts sped up rather than delayed into later years. There's a reason Republicans did that, because it does take time to implement some of these things. But that's not enough for these Freedom Caucus members. And unlike past budget committees, this budget committee is full of conservatives. And that has really potentially slowed down this process.
So the spending cuts and the demand for more and earlier spending cuts is a big part of the reason why this big bill is stuck right now. Another is the fact that to pay for some of the spending cuts that are already in there, the Republicans are putting cuts to Medicaid. Right now, the changes to Medicaid include adding a work requirement for able-bodied adults, implementing stricter eligibility rules, like re-verifying who is eligible every 6 months, adding co-payments, cutting funding for states that allow undocumented people to enroll. I want to go to Tom Foreman, because Tom, you're at the Magic Wall, and I'd like for you to walk through how Medicaid actually works currently, who it covers, and what it costs.
Yeah, and think about those changes you just mentioned there as we go through it. When you talk about Medicaid, it is a government health insurance program for low-income and disabled Americans, including children. It's not Medicare, which is generally for older people. Medicaid for people who are struggling. 72 million people. They pay little, if any, out of pocket for their care. It was established in 1965 by Congress. Who's on it? 4 out of 10 children in this country. 1 out of 6 U.S. adults. People with a median income of $36,000 a year. So not much at all. What does it cover? Usual stuff: births, hospital stays, nursing home health care, vaccinations, prescription drugs. This is where it gets sticky when you get to the cost of it. It is paid for more by the federal government, $606 billion in funding a year, less by state governments, but it is a mixed program out there. It is not the most expensive entitlement program, about 9 to 10% of the budget. The work requirement question, interesting. 64% of the people who are getting it right now already work full or part-time. Not working because of caregiving, that's about 12%. If you're a parent and it costs more for care for your children or for your parents than you can make in a job, well, then this is the right decision economically for you at least. Not working due to illness or disability, 10%. Not working because they're in school trying to get a better job, make more money, 7%. And 8% are either retired or they just can't get a job for some other reason. And importantly, when these lawmakers look at it, everyone has skin in this game. Look, if you look here, the lightest states have the least number of people enrolled by a percentage. The darker it gets, the more it's enrolled. But yeah, would this hit big states like California and Oregon that tend to vote blue? Absolutely. But there are a ton of red states in here with a tremendous number of people, on average, 28%. There's not one lawmaker who can touch this without having a significant part of his base feel the pain.
Tom, that last map really does tell the story of why this part of the fight on this bill is so critical, and it does not fall on partisan lines or even geographical lines because of how much Medicaid affects every single district. Thank you so much, Tom. Appreciate that. And Zolan, on that note, I'm old enough to remember back when Obamacare passed. You know, one of the things that you heard from the president and his top aides, Rahm Emanuel, was that when you pass a new right or something that people can have, whether it's Obamacare, but specifically within Obamacare was Medicaid expansion, it's hard to take it back. What we are seeing now is that play out.
That's right, and the anxiety amongst public officials on the Hill, but also some people in the White House I've spoken to, and some people around the president who fear what would happen if you did slash a program that many of the president's own supporters rely on here as well. I don't, the reporting I have thus far, I don't think the president is in the details of these negotiations at this point, but he does want to walk away from this with as little political backlash have you seen. And sometimes that even means like a true social post that would go against Republican norms, like, okay, tax the rich for this, you know, to pay for it. But I do know that for those around close to the president, that when it comes to benefits, Medicaid benefits, they don't want the political backlash that comes with that.
Which is why I just want to play this, because it really does speak to that. You hear the semantics and the attempt at branding what they are trying to do to Medicaid as reform. But it's not just Democrats who aren't buying that, it's some of the most prominent Republicans. Let's listen.
We're not cutting Medicaid. Stop buying that. And then you can look at Medicaid cuts, the Medicaid reforms, I should say.
We're not talking here about just work requirements. The House goes much, much, much further than that. This is real Medicaid benefit cuts. I can't support that. No Republican should support that.
Even Steve Bannon has said, you cannot cut Medicaid. It will hurt us with our voters. It's not just Democratic voters. So that's why you also saw the president not even put in his budget proposal the word Medicaid.
Yeah, and if you go back, there are numerous instances of President Trump saying, we will not cut Medicaid, precious Medicaid, we will keep Medicaid. Though there is sometimes some nuance in the way he says it, indicating that, you know, he's talking about people who are disabled, children, mothers. The able-bodied thing is where I think he has left a tiny bit of nuance in his rhetoric.
Yeah, I mean, and the challenge, as Tom pointed out, is that some of those able-bodied people, 12%, are taking care of their loved ones, and that's why they're getting Medicaid.
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. With that being said, God bless you for being here. You guys are the best. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel, and we are about to call it a night. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. Believe in Almighty God, all right? Fathers, take care of your kids, okay? Be present, okay? Take care of your kids. And shout out to the military veterans. You guys definitely protect the homeland. Shout out to the law enforcement officers. Thank you for all you do. God bless you. And thank you guys for tuning in, man. We will be back later. Have a wonderful night. God is the greatest. And God bless you. God bless America. And it is your boy, Genesis. And I am signing out. See you soon.